very good when you compare it to countries in the region and also, for that matter, countries in the EU. I think Kosovo is probably top of the bill. It has the highest growth rate at present. But we need to say that this is mainly generated by public investment and public consumption, related last year mainly to the start of the construction of the highway. A second strong point, I think, is that financial stability was preserved, despite the fact, of course, that we had this incident, or this arrest, I should say, of the central bank governor. This did not spill over to the financial sector, so everything remained calm, which is good, I think. We had, this year at least, a relatively stable fiscal framework, so the income and revenue of the government was relatively balanced up till now. Also reflecting this was the agreement that was signed with the IMF. I'll come back to this later, because for next year I think there's a different picture emerging. And then the export of goods has picked up in the last year. We've seen especially ferronickel, which is the nickel producer, mine and nickel producer and processor, and accounting for, before the international global crisis, for about 50 to 60% of the export value. They have reopened their second production line, and this then immediately is reflected in a huge jump in the export figure. But we need to also be realistic. This is now more or less on the same level again as the pre-crisis level, the exports. Then turning to the weak points in the economic criteria. Unemployment, of course, remains very high. It is about 40 to 45% according to official data. We have to, of course, keep in mind that this is I think, an overestimation of the real situation, because we also have a big informal sector in Kosovo, where a lot of people work but don't pay taxes, and they're also not registered as unemployed. But still, the unemployment rate is very high. I remember that, I think it was last year, the Ministry of Finance made a kind of calculation on what it would take to get this percentage down by half, so the official rate to get it down to about 20% in a 10-year period, so in 2010 and 2020. And they calculated that every year Kosovo would have to have a growth rate of the gross domestic product of about 7%, which so far, since 1999, it did not manage to reach. So it's this reflects the seriousness of the situation, I think, with regard to unemployment. Future budgets are likely to face risk. The main thing here is that expenditure of the government tends to grow faster than revenue, and the revenue that is created or is generated is largely dependent on some one-off deals, like the privatization of PTK, and also what we saw this year, the dividend of PTK that was given to the state budget as a revenue. Here, I think what we see happening from next year is will be a hole in the budget, because actually in the IMF program the privatization proceeds of PTK were already foreseen to become available at the end of this year. Now it's clear that we will not have this. It's more likely that in the best, I think, possible scenario, this will be somewhere maybe in the middle of next year. As you may know, the actual strategy, the PTK privatization strategy, was approved in the parliament, but without a quorum present. So what was decided is to have a new vote on this strategy once there will be a new parliament. So this is causing some delays. Of course, with the elections having been called, it was not possible for the IMF, who were here in October, I think, the last week of October, to complete their review of the IMF program. And this has then also delayed disbursement of their concessional loan. It has created a delay in the disbursement of budget support managed by the World Bank and given by several donors. And it has also led to the situation that we ourselves, the European Commission, were not able to disburse 20 million of budget support. So this all adds up, and I think for next year what we might see is that the government will draw down on its reserves. So let's say the savings that the government has built up in a long line of years will be tapped into, and what also might happen is that the government might, for the first time, try to issue debt to finance this fiscal deficit. Another point which is worrying more from a private sector development point of view is the legal system when it comes to investing in Kosovo, when it comes to engaging in trade or in any business transaction. It still remains difficult to enforce contracts. So what do you do if you as a firm sell things and you deliver but you don't get a payment? Then it usually takes a long time before you can really, through the court system, try to make this person pay. And this, of course, is not really good for investments if this continues. Property rights are also poorly defined, and this is then reflected in businesses having difficulties to get loans when the banks are asking for collateral in the form of real estate, in the form of land. Then this is difficult for them to hand over a clear legal certificate saying this land belongs to me. Finally, external balances remain significant. As you're probably all aware, exports are substantially higher than imports, and this is something that has improved because of the quickly opening of their second production line, but still the export to import ratio remains rather low. Moving on then to what we call European standards part. In the area of the internal market, which for the European Union is a very important area, because this is actually one of the main benefits, I would say, as an economist of the European Union, that within the European Union you don't have to pay any customs duties anymore. There are no more borders. You can just drive with your truck with stuff from Denmark to Portugal without ever being stopped. This is a very important area, and we're also very glad to see that progress has been made here, because for this to happen, this free movement of goods, you need what we call standardization of goods. So goods need to live up to certain common standards on quality, on when it comes to food products, on health issues. So here we saw progress in the adoption of laws. Consumer protection was also strengthened through this consumer protection program and the establishment of a Center for Consumer Protection. Of course, we need to see to what extent this program will be implemented, and also whether this center will be used actually by people that have a concern over the product that they bought as a consumer. We have some progress on the enforcement of intellectual property rights, especially with the customs organization having created a new unit, also being operational already, and this has resulted in more interceptions at the border of counterfeit or pirated goods. Another issue to mention is that both the customs and tax administrations have raised their revenues both by about 10% compared to the period that we monitored last year. You might have seen, now going to the weak points, some press coverage today or yesterday on the procurement law. Of course, public procurement is a very important issue for the European Union. This is the process by which governments buy things that they need. It can be both services or goods. And this, of course, is in every country, I would say, an issue where corruption can emerge. And this is also one of the areas, therefore, that the Commission attaches very high importance to. And we are a bit disappointed with the new law that was adopted. We singled out this area, public procurement, in our last progress report. We were very critical about it. We gave also support for the redrafting of the law, which was adopted by the government, but then in the Parliament some, I think, changes were made that we very much regret. One point is that so far in Kosovo, the accountability for people responsible for public procurement processes was limited to one single person, the procurement officer, in a ministry or in any other budget organization. And usually this